Former Prime Minister John Howard has told Sky News the Northern Territory government is making the same mistakes that forced his government to launch the intervention more than 15 years ago. Let's go live to Matt Cunningham now in Darwin. Matt, these comments are going to provoke a strong reaction in the Territory. What exactly are those mistakes that Mr Howard is referring to?
Well, we're seeing that reaction already, Laura. I've just spoken to the Chief Minister, Natasha Fyles, and we'll play you some of what she had to say shortly. But as to those mistakes, well, we've covered them extensively here on Sky News. In particular, the decision in July last year to allow alcohol to return to Aboriginal town camps around Alice Springs and smaller Indigenous communities. Of course, that was an intervention-era measure. When John Howard's government launched the intervention back in 2007, it suspended the Racial Discrimination Act. It implemented widespread bans on alcohol in remote Indigenous communities and Aboriginal town camps, and it sent the army into many of those remote Indigenous communities to do health checks and to conduct other business in those communities. John Howard has spoken to our investigations reporter Jonathan Lee. Here's a bit of what he's had to say.
The failure of governments at different levels. Look at the Northern Territory. 15 years ago when I was Prime Minister, we had an intervention in the Northern Territory, and that was because of the failure of the Territory government. In the last few weeks, months, we've seen the same failure virtually repeated in the same part of Australia. Now that's a failure of government, and having a voice won't stop that.
Now, of course, we saw, Laura, with those alcohol bans, that alcohol was allowed to return to those town camps in July last year. But then there was an intervention of sorts from the Albanese federal government. We saw Anthony Albanese fly to Alice Springs. We then saw the Northern Territory government reverse that decision and reinstate those alcohol bans in those Aboriginal town camps. Despite that, Natasha Fyles is rejecting the claims that have been made today by Mr Howard.
I think it's incredibly unfair that every time the Liberal coalition government are in trouble nationally and want to have a look at me moment, they raise the question of the Northern Territory. The intervention failed at the time. It disempowered Indigenous people, and we're still dealing with those consequences a decade and a half later.
OK, Matt, well, another Northern Territory government decision that's causing controversy is this decision to ask the Police Commissioner to resign. He's made it clear he doesn't want to go. So what's Natasha Fyles had to say about this?
Well, still keeping fairly tight-lipped, Laura. It is now 12 days since we first reported that the NT government had asked Jamie Chalker, the Police Commissioner, to resign, saying it had lost confidence in him and his ability to stay in that role. I've asked Natasha Fyles about when we will know about the Police Commissioner's future. Here's what she had to say.
I want to reassure the Northern Territory Police Force that there is strong leadership. Acting Commissioner Michael Murphy has acted in the role before and has stepped right in, and we very much want this matter resolved. It is of a private employment confidential nature, and so I am restricted in what I can say.
So as she said last week, Laura, she is saying she has confidence in Michael Murphy. Natasha Fyles, though, for 12 days now has not been able to say she has confidence in Jamie Chalker, the Police Commissioner. I am told that it's hoped this situation will be resolved in the next few days. Of course, Jamie Chalker has hired some of Sydney's best lawyers, including Arthur Moses SC, to represent him in his ongoing mediation with the Northern Territory government.
Yeah, wow. OK, this has got a bit to run. She's sticking to the same lines.